We're both
Steven.
we're both hiding the fact that we didn't do our hair or wearing
Oh
hats.
yeah, my account and my stuff. That's okay. That's what hats are for. That's what hats are for.
I realized that right away.
Cheers, brother.
Oh, there we go. Man, this camera's throwing me off. Still can't remember the name of this whiskey either.
Don't worry about it. It's been a few weeks. I've been doing a few solo podcasts, and obviously I suck at it. So I'm glad you're back here. But
you don't suck.
No, I'm teasing. I had a lot of fun actually with them, but I missed having you with me because this is our thing, but we're recording remotely, which means we're gonna get a lot of technical issues.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't get too close to the mic because it sounds like you're getting an electrical rod up your ass as you talk.
Oh, but that's
perfect right there. That's perfect.
Okay, so anyways, so we're gonna have technical issues. We're gonna have volume issues. We're gonna have all kinds of issues.
You're getting the anal shock again.
I didn't move.
There you go, right there.
How about this? Is this better?
That is perfect. Now it sounds angelic.
Okay. Well, Lucifer's an angel, right?
Exactly. We didn't specify what type, but go ahead. Technical issues.
No, anyways, I'm glad to finally have you on, and we really don't have an agenda. I just want to catch up, man. I think our audience wants to know what is Steve been up to.
Yeah, a lot of questions. Just needed to, if everyone refers back to the podcast, Warriors Without a War, right? And we kind of started with you, and we were supposed to go down the line, but I think it hit me a little harder, and we've talked about this in many other podcasts, right? But for the military person, the first responder, etc., every day is nonstop, high pace, blah blah blah. You don't really think about anything. You hear people say, "Oh, this trauma, you're gonna experience this," and then you're like, "Whatever, it's just all in a day's work," right? And we shove it off because tomorrow we have to do it again. And it wasn't until I got retired where all these things started kind of hitting me. And I like to describe it as like a 1 mile long freight train going 60 miles an hour coming to a complete stop, and all those cars just boom, 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 boom. So that being said, I felt like, that internal battle and had to do some stuff, and, took up another position. I'm still at Masada part-time like I was before, still teaching,
I want to make sure people know that, because I think people think you and I are not friends anymore.
No, yeah, that would be like, I think if we ever split as brothers or friends, that's basically like Armageddon right there. Like
pretty much.
It'd have to be something so catastrophic.
And I will say, you tell the audience in a second what you do to whatever extent that you can, and but for me as a leader, right? Because at the end of the day, I do try to share some leadership lessons. For me, one of the biggest joys and happier moments where when you came and sat with me and you told me that you're going to take this path and the things that you want to accomplish. And we always say that a leader's greatest role is to make other leaders, right?
Right. The student should always surpass the master.
Yeah, and it took me a while to learn that, right? Because if you remember, we had other studs that worked with us, and when they left and went their own way, I kind of took it personally at the time when we were talking.
But it's also the circumstances, how it goes about too. So that always plays a factor.
Agreed. But I think now in retrospect, that's all, I'm still in touch with all of them. I'm super proud of what they're doing. But you being my brother, right? Seeing you finally, after all these years of me telling you that you should do all these things and take care of yourself and follow your dreams, seeing you do that, at least starting the process, fills me up with so much joy and happiness.
You never stop learning, right? We're always students. We always should seek to be the student, and in this case, I had to learn about myself, because essentially, I don't want to say it was a dictation, but I knew I wanted to be military. I knew I wanted to be a cop, and in retrospect, it's an easy job, right? They tell you where to go, what to do, what to wear, how to do it, and then you add a little seasoning of your own personal, interpretation of the job. But all in all, you're basically given everything, right?
Right.
You just need the cojones, to go and do it. And once you're stupid enough to say, I want to do it, they guide you the rest of the way. So it's a little different now because it was like the struggle of finding self-worth, right? This is why I have such a passion now to work with veterans and first responders. I'm still a peer counselor for the police department I retired from. Getting more involved with Irreverent Warriors and their meetups and their Soaking Marshes and stuff like that, because it's important. Because one, we need our tribe. Whether you're still a part of that world or not, they're still a tribe, right? It takes a village, and it takes a village to keep you up. So for me, it just became a struggle of staying within my tribe. This is why I tell people I didn't go anywhere. I'm just doing my thing. I'm still teaching, and rediscovering who I was, learning about myself, and basically, how do I take all of that, right? All those years in the military, all those years in law enforcement, and give it back, and we were doing that in Masada, like teaching other law enforcement agencies and stuff like that. But for me personally, you're Masada, right? That's your baby. We all know BK is Masada, and we all are part of it too. But that's you, So Steve needed to find out Steve, and I think getting this position really helped me, because I realized just how good of an instructor I can be. Seeing how quickly I can diagnose a problem, create a solution for it, implement it, and see results from it, sometimes within 30 minutes.
I find it interesting that you said that, considering we've all known how good of an instructor you are, right? Because we all kept telling you, we all know that.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
So it's great that you finally see it for yourself. So what you do now, without getting into details of which agency and what, you took on a contractual job, and again, you're still teaching at Masada, you're still there at least a couple times a week, but you took on a contractual position teaching law enforcement officers, specifically firearms and tactics, right?
Yep. Specifically, working with entry-level and experienced officers, kind of redefining their roles and implementing new techniques. Because like many agencies, and people don't realize that they're stuck in that this is the way we've always done it. So
you don't say.
The words I hate to hear.
Right. So I came last night. I stopped by your house because I happened to be in the area, and
Yes.
that was great, sitting on the porch and watching Ophelia's tropical storm while having a glass of bourbon on the front desk, on the front porch. But you were telling me some stories of some students that you had, right? So what are some takeaways that you have in terms of firearms training, where it is, where it's going, and how can you kind of shape it?
So we've alluded to this in the past, right? Your instructor, I don't care what their background is, what they've done, etc. Not everyone makes a good instructor. All right. There's certain qualities you have to have. I don't care if you're a Rambo, you're the baddest tactician out there. It doesn't make you a good instructor. All right. You have to know, one, your audience, and this, right? And how to articulate the information specifically so that the person understands and does it. Unfortunately, with law enforcement, they treat it like a mass production factory, right? You got to pump them in, through and out, right? Hit the check marks and go. And unfortunately, for some instructors who just don't have that diverse background and experience in teaching different people and different methods, this is why it's important for all instructors to look at other methods, whether you like them or not. Just go learn them, understand them. They're very pigeonholed in their experience and what they were taught to teach. So they keep doing the same thing over and over again and try to find quick solutions to hit the check mark and send them on their way. And unfortunately, myself and the other contractors that work there are having to deal with this. When you, I had a high-ranking official come up to me on Friday, like, this is the way I've been taught and doing it for the last 20 years. How can I break this? I'm like, well, give me 20 minutes, right? And I'll take away those 20 years. And, and they're like, what? And I've done it. I'm like, yes, it's not hard. You just need to be taught properly. And unfortunately, instructors are not teaching. They're pushing people through, and that happens in the civilian world too,
Right. So when I was working for the Maryland Police Training Commission, and I have no problem throwing agencies under the bus because I don't work for any of them. I remember there was, this this idea in firearms training that nobody failed. They remediate to death and everybody passed, right? And I'm like, well, there's no standard in that case, right? And we're not teaching them anything. We're just making sure they get the bare minimum score on a test so they can qualify and get their credentials, right? And and to your point, right, it's not, well, let me take a step back. When I was teaching instructor development classes, so not even the defensive tactics or whatever, we were teaching a train the trainer class. It was amazing to me how the state wanted us to teach, okay, this is the format that we use to create a lesson plan. And this is how we create a PowerPoint. But at no point did they teach you how to target a lesson plan to a specific individual. Because
Right.
within a class, you're going to have different learners. Do you have the opportunity to work one-on-one, or do you work in a class format?
Both actually. So, when officers come to qualify, the recruits are the recruits, right? They get their allotted 2 weeks of training. Unfortunately, only 2 weeks. And you work with them. With the experienced officers, they come in for in-service. We usually have 7 at a time, so not one-on-one, etc. But they twice a month they do what's called open range, and experienced officers can come down and meet with an instructor and say, I need to work on this, I need to work on that, or can you watch me shoot and help me fix my problems? So, and at that point, you're getting one-on-one training. The problem is you got to have the motivated instructors who want to do it, and that's where it's unfortunate when you're working with these sworn instructors that have been doing this job for years, but all they do is complain about the job and how they want to leave. And like, how are you supposed to instill confidence and motivate officers when you don't believe in it yourself? And there's a big problem there. Listen, the majority of the time is just confidence.
Yep.
I stood behind a sergeant, watched her pump some rounds into the 5 ring, and I'm cheering her on. Keep doing that. You're doing amazing. And she shot one of the highest scores she's ever shot just from that. She's like, you need to be with me every time I qualify. I'm like, well, unfortunately, I'm not. But you obviously know how to do it. You just, it was all in your head. And a lot of time, as it's all in your head, right? If we defeat ourselves mentally, then we've already defeated ourselves. We got to go in there with the attitude knowing that we're going to win in whatever the situation is, regardless of what it is.
Yep. I don't know that you're gonna like this, but I'm gonna throw you under the bus in a sense. I'm gonna put you on the spot, and I'm gonna say, so you took in this contractual job, but that is not your long-term career goals, and you're also working on some personal ventures. And I'm gonna force you to say, at least give an idea of what you're working on, because we're gonna come back a year from now and make sure that you actually accomplished.
Well,
at least
one of them is to have basically like a tactical company myself, not to be on my own, but to be a support of Masada and anyone else, right? And we were talking about the name of it, but that's like kind of my umbrella, and under that, one of the primary ones is pursuing, what are one of the ventures that failed in the past, which I've learned so much from, the RT venture, and start another very specific apparel line for veterans. All right. That's going to have a very cultural, urban vibe to it, because I want to get away from the whole hardcore, Guns and Roses and all that craziness. And that's really it. Just, I want to create another source of knowledge and education to support wherever I can support, essentially. So that's some of the stuff that's coming. That's, what I'm hoping to do, and grow with. And that way I can bring more back to the table too, to Masada, and expand that. So.
And I think that's another thing that our audience probably, I want to throw out there, that you are still a part of Masada. And not only that,
yes,
we're waiting for you to come back full time when the time is right for you and for us, and that we can give you the right spot in the company, and you can, do what you want and need to do.
Yes.
But in the meantime, I know I keep cutting you off, but I love the fact that in the meantime, you finally pursuing your own dreams. And for me, that's so much more important than anything else.
It's not even a dream thing. I think it's more, well, the dreams in the specific entrepreneurial, veteranpreneurial thing, yes. But I think it's almost like you have, especially for a lot of veterans, first responders who struggle with their identity and their purpose and the whole warrior without a war thing, sometimes you just have to step back in to that fight and kind of see, am I still willing to fight it, or am I somebody else, etc. And I had to make a big decision with the service dog. I had to turn it down. I was getting ready to get issued my service dog, which I knew I would benefit highly from, and my family. But I think my current, trial of trying to rediscover myself and repurpose myself and kind of reset the clocks is more important at this time, because that's going to equate to the mental health in itself anyway. So I told him, I was like, just reapply. You still qualify if you ever want the dog. But my goal is to not have to need it. So, and that's the whole, going out there, getting back in the field, and and it's cool because where I'm working is where I first started law enforcement.
Right.
So it was like coming home. It was weird. It's kind of like almost like a full circle synonymous. Like, all right, we gotta.
I think 100% it has been, and you came with so much more experience and
Right.
stuff that you can share. So you're not on the receiving end now; you're on the giving end, and that's a perfect combination for a career.
It is, because I still have pride with that agency, and it's a different agency now than from when I was first there. I mean, if it was the way it is now when I was there then, I probably never would have left. That being said, though, they're more dynamic. They're doing more, they're more exposed out in the world in what they do. And I think it's important that myself and the other 3 contractors I work with bring the experience that we have to them, because that experience is not readily available within the agency itself, at least not yet. As they grow and expand and experience things throughout their existence, that's one thing. Right now, they don't have that, and it's when you're standing on the line and you're trying to teach something, and the main instructors is like, well, I don't know what that is. I've never done it. I've never had it. But then here we are like, well, we have, if you're willing to listen to what we got to say, and that's one of the biggest fights, because as contractors, we're technically, we're not from their tribe. Thankfully, though, because I was there, it's a little different with me. So they're more open to listen. So I've become kind of like that liaison in the bridge.
Right.
What's that?
I say, some of the faces too. Some of the people that are still there.
Oh, Jesus Christ! Yes, I know hundreds of people. I couldn't walk 100 feet without getting stopped the first 2 weeks.
It's not like anybody's challenging the fact that you are from them. They know, they know. But I'm going to add one more thing. And actually, funnily enough, I was just writing an article earlier today. I started to write it. It's going to be published soon. And about how sometimes we don't learn the lesson until we're ready to see it, right? And the thing is, with you, I'm sure a lot of things have changed over the years, and that you bring a lot of new tactics and methodologies and so forth. But how much of that you think also, maybe some of it was there when you were there, but you just, because you were new, you were a recruit, you were lower in the totem pole.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Right? 100%. The untapped resources that exist right before us, I think that's happened in every institution I've worked with, from the military to law enforcement. It's, you don't want to speak up. You don't want to look like you're showboating or anything like that. But, absolutely, there was, guiltily enough, I lost count how many times where I wanted to speak up and say something and I never did, and you're like, man, I wish we would have done it this way. It would have been so much better. Eventually I got to the point where I could speak up, and I have spoken up, probably more than I should have spoken up, but who cares?
No.
Sometimes you need people like that. But yeah, 100%. It's easy for me to point out the crayon eaters, and like I ask them what they've done, and they're like, oh, I was a scout sniper, or I was, security forces and assaulter. Them dudes can clear rooms with their eyes closed, but nobody's reaching out to them, or they just don't want to say it. They don't want to explain what they did. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things where resources are completely untapped, and that's in any institution.
Yeah, but I would also say, as a beginner, you don't know what to ask sometimes. So you're a little different. You came from the Marine Corps when you went into the agency, and you came also from a different agency prior. So you had a little more experience. But I would say most people, especially the green, recruits and so forth, they wouldn't know what to ask. So it's not that they're not necessarily willing to. They just wouldn't know where to start. And for me, I'd say, especially from a leadership standpoint, I've been going through some lessons myself in the last few weeks and few months. And some of those lessons have always been there. I just wasn't open to see them.
Right.
And you just have to be sometimes just in a different mindset, different frame, different place, different time. And the lesson's always been there. We're just not ready to accept it, and at some point we just become ready to accept it. So I think for you, and I don't know, I'm 100% just putting words in your mouth right now, but I think you were recruited there what, 15, 17 years ago? How long ago was that? When were you there?
Yes. 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah, so 16, 17 years ago, right? The lens from which you were looking at things is different than the lens you're looking at it now, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So that changes a lot.
Yeah,
And
100%.
are you able to, as a farms instructor, to also share with the students some of your personal experiences? I mean, the fact that you've been in an urban policing environment for the past, greater part of your career, right? That's different than what they're used to dealing with,
Right.
and you can share some lessons, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, here and there, nothing on a grander scale yet, because obviously I just started and I'm still kind of being exposed to the different programs. But their current lieutenant, she's phenomenal in being open-minded, which is awesome. Because for someone like me who's, has so many ideas on trying to keep first responders safe, she's willing to listen. And she actually started a experienced law enforcement officer program, which for us, what they're doing, that's like what we do for fun. But it's getting them exposed to more dynamic situations in law enforcement and in firearms situations, which everyone should be doing, not just law enforcement, but anyone who decides to carry a firearm, right? Because we don't just shoot in a sterile environment. It's going to be dynamic. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be loud. So, yes, I do get the opportunity to share. I've shared quite a few times, and I'm hoping to share more. And that's where, like with the open ranges, I tell after every qualification, if anyone shoots below a certain score, I tell them I want to see you at open range, and you're going to ask for me, and I'm going to work with you. And we don't get enough of that. It's you don't the instructors are like, all right, you called, get out. I need to go home. With me and the other contractors, it's more like, all right, those of you who shot below this score, we better see you at open range, and you're going to look for one of us, all right, and we're going to work with you. And not only that, while they're qualifying, which is something many of the instructors don't do, but the guys I work with do. I got to point that out because these guys are phenomenal. We diagnose their shooting while they're qualifying, and afterwards tell them, hey, we need to work on this. Don't do it now because you're qualifying, so don't change anything drastic, right? Because it's going to affect you. But I kind of have an idea what the problem is, so come back and see me, and we're going to fix it. Right? That's what you don't get, and that's what they're getting now. And I can't tell you the reactions I'm getting.
Oh, no. I lost you probably about 2 minutes ago. I don't know that he was recording or not.
It probably was.
I actually had to change my Wi-Fi. I told you there's going to be technical issues. That's kind of like the way it goes.
The timer was still going.
So hopefully I recorded you on a separate channel.
Yeah.
I'll find out later. If you did, great, and people actually heard it. If not, then sucks to be them, and sucks to be me because of the area. But hopefully it was a good answer, and hopefully they got something out of it. So what's next for Steve?
Just for the listeners, I ain't going nowhere. I'm still teaching classes, and we'll still expand. And I actually, told them, like, whenever I'm free on weekends, if anybody wants to train, I'm down to do a little fight club. Just growing, finishing school again, not that I need to, but just to expand my mind and keep challenging my brain. Working on LLCs and hopefully open up a couple of my own companies so I could be like BK. So
I don't really want to be like BK, but I'm happy to see Steve be like Steve and grow, and that's awesome.
No, my biggest thing is this apparel line. I really have an itch for it. I wanted to support suicide awareness. My hope is to team up with organizations. They don't know it yet, but I'm hoping that they'll be open to it, like Irreverent Warriors. They bring that tribe together for people who are hurting. And hopefully, like, just be able to bring more to the table. Even as an instructor, I'm learning. I'm learning new methodologies to teach. I'm still continuing to grow myself. Taking even just because, I went and signed up for the NRA basic firearms course, right? This is something a novice shooter would take, but I'm going through it again just so that I remember little things that I've forgotten.
The instructor class or just
No,
the
no,
base?
no, like the basic pistol, how to decock a hammer, how to, do that just so I could hear it again. Because even just going through the course, I realized how many things that I failed to implement when I could have.
Yeah, you should come through our HEO class maybe one day.
I have.
So, no, I hear you. I think that's awesome. Well, I almost want to say, like, it's great to have you back, and I haven't seen you forever, but because that's, I think, what our listeners, they haven't seen you in a few weeks, right? A couple months. And
yeah.
But I'm like, I see you every week. I saw you last week.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Steve, it's great having you back on the show. I'm looking forward to, if we have to do it remotely for a little bit longer, we will. If not, we have a beautiful studio, which I haven't been to either.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't think you've been there yourself.
No, but I would love to go back there and keep recording with you. So
yeah, we'll start with some new topics, especially on my new venture to try to be an entrepreneur as well, from lessons learned from you and other ventures. So, maybe we can document that process as we go as well.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, brother, love you, and thanks for being on the show, and I will see you later. Until next time.
Yes, sir.
Stay savage.
Always.